my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
For as long as I can remember, one of my biggest fantasies was to one day have the ability to travel through time. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say Back to the Future was one of my favorite movies growing up. The idea alone mystified me. Marty traveling back in time and meeting his parents before they even substantially knew each other. We can push that further and say that he was the conduit all along that brought his parents together in the first place, before he even came into existence. There are many scientists such as Einstein, Hawking, and Kaku who I could start quoting and explaining all their theories on time travel and what they all mean, but I think I could better explain my point by just cutting to the core of it. In a nutshell, if time travel is possible in a one-dimension universe, then everything is predetermined and we only enjoy the illusion of free will.
What? Let's go talk to ourselves. Excellent. What'd we say anyways? I don't know. Let's go find out.
I believe time travel to the past in any case is impossible. And if you could, you would only be playing a part in history you never knew you served. Huh? Well, let's try a few examples. We all know Hitler was bad, and he alone might be the motivation for many people to build a time machine, so they could go back and stop him before he ever rose to power. But there's already a flaw in this logic. If you built a time machine to go back in time to kill Hitler and succeeded, then in this world without Hitler, how would your future self ever be motivated to build the time machine that sent you back there in the first place? It's a paradox. Most likely, if you could go to the past and get close enough to put a gun to Hitler's head, the gun would probably misfire. What's even more interesting is, this is how history always happened. In Hitler's life, there was always a person that got a gun to his head only to have it misfire. Huh? Let's try another example. H.G. Wells' famous novel, The Time Machine, actually sums up this paradox perfectly. Let's just say I finish reading the novel and it inspires me to test this idea of paradoxes. So I build a time machine to go back in time and kill H.G. Wells before he even writes this book. So I finish my machine and arrive in the past. I then sneak into H.G.'s house without him knowing, sneak up right behind him, and put a gun to his head. Click. The gun misfires. However, H.G. is shocked by the noise and springs up and runs away before I can try and kill him some other way, only to return with the police who arrest me and throw me in jail. Let's say H.G. goes home that night and he can't stop thinking about this strange man who tried to kill him. He comes back to the jail and confronts me and asks me why I did it. Let's say I tell him I was a time traveler who came back in time to kill him. He may or may not believe this, but the idea alone is in his head. So later, when he returns home, this idea is just eating at him, and he comes up with this great story, and he calls it The Time Machine. Where I had set out to stop him from writing the book in the first place, in actuality, I was the reason he wrote the book in the first place. My traveling through time was nothing more than me fulfilling my destiny to inspire H.G. Wells to write that book. This is a classic example of how time travel plays into destiny. Kind of making sense? Let me take this a little further now.
Let's say I'm still inspired by a story, but I decide that traveling to the past is pointless because I couldn't change nothing. So I set my sights to the future, where nothing's written yet. Surely there I could do a lot. See what our civilization has progressed to? Maybe get the scores for the next few Super Bowls. But then what? I could hop back in my machine and go back in time and use this information, right? I'm sorry to say, but wrong. Time travel to the future is a one-way ticket. Let's use an extreme example. I travel to the future, and it's in chaos. 20 years from now, an evil scientist rules the world with his robot army. Some would then conclude that I need to travel back in time to stop this scientist from ever rising to power, right? Wrong. The simplest argument would be again that given the information I know in the future, I could not change the future's present. Think of it like this. If I learned this scientist's name, how he rose to power, and where I could find him before his revolution, I learned all of this in the future, and then headed back to the past to kill him before he could take over. There's the problem right there. If I changed the future, how could I have ever learned of this future world then? And its scientist dictator. If I killed him in the past and that future ceased to exist, then how could I have ever seen this scientist take over the world in the future? I would have never killed him then, not being motivated by that factor, right? The same logic applies to our past and the Hitler scenario. So then, we can't change the future's past either. Let's try another example. I build a time machine in present day, but only a time machine that can send information back and forth between my present self and my future self. Let's say the second I turn on the machine, knowing it will work to its full potential, I get a message from the future, and it's the cure for cancer. What would have taken us forever to cure has been cured in seconds, all thanks to the future, right? Actually, no, and it gets a little eerie here. But I wouldn't be changing the future at all by receiving this cure for cancer. In fact, I would only be playing into what was destined to happen. with regards to my future self's present, that is. What this means is my future self knew that my present self would receive a cure for cancer from him when he turned that machine on. How? Because my future self already lived that moment and received a cure from his future self at some point in his present. I would even go as far as to say that's how my future self would know the exact moment to send the cure to my present self to receive it when I first turned the machine on in the present day. So then my future self would essentially just be playing into what was destined for him to do in regards to my present self's present, that is. More so, in regards to the cure for cancer, where did it come from? If my present self received it from my future self, then where did he get the cure for cancer? Well, he got it from his future self when he first turned his machine on in his past, making all of this one big endless loop and a cure for cancer that appeared from thin air into existence. Could this theoretically happen? Possibly, but even in regards to the future, everything that happens is going to happen. So in closing, I'll try and sum up what I've been trying to convey with all these examples. You can't change time in any scenario, past, present, or future. The only way to imagine a time machine would be to imagine it as a big TiVo. Let's imagine our present is somewhere like 30 minutes into the hour-long show that is existence. We could rewind the show and see what happened at 15 minutes in or earlier, and we could easily fast forward and see what happens 45 minutes into the show. But we can never change or alter what happens during that show to make it come to another conclusion other than the one it is already destined to come to. So do we really have any free will at all? Or are we just playing the parts that we were given? It seems present is a very relative term, and perhaps that there is no present. Maybe past, present, and future all exist at once.
If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!